Hey guys, it is Jordan from Jordan's Thoughts. I haven't done a video in a while, but right now, while I have a little bit of time, I'm going to do a quick recap of what I thought about the Queer Ultimatum Season 2. Um, so, well, not spoiler, but just a notice, this is my opinion, and in order for you to understand my review, you would already have to watch the whole season and the reunion. All right, so this is what I have. So I'm gonna just go through and then talk about all of the contestants. So AJ and Brittany. I feel like Brittany didn't get enough love for me. I feel like she was very attractive, and may Brittany find me in my life for a wife. She was educated, hardworking, attractive. I think AJ was okay. She seemed a little goofy and kind of privileged because of her aesthetic. Um, Kind of like more stereotypical masculine mixed looking, so that always kind of attracts a relationship. But she seemed in these kind of situations, it seemed like people kind of base their self-worth a little bit about being in a relationship without self-love, because she said Brittany was like her whole world. So like, who is she without her partner in a way? I feel like society needs to train people to have self love so that no matter who's around, they'll always have self love and not be dependent on anyone outside of themselves. But I am glad to see, a black couple, you know, on TV, some sort of representation, and that they did stay together. So as far as Mel and Marie. So Mel seemed like she was way too immature for Marie, and she wanted to play around while Marie got the short end of the stick. And AJ, who was her trial marriage partner, friend zoned her while sneaking around with her girlfriend Brittany. So Marie had every right, in my opinion, to be mad that her girlfriend was messing around the whole show and wasn't serious. I feel like she deserves someone that is just as serious as her, and that shows they showed, the real heartbreak and the messiness of, our queer relationships. All right. So as far as Pilar and Haley, so in my opinion, they seemed mature, and they had a great foundation, which saved them from a lot of the outside drama. So I feel like it was sad that Megan switched up on her, so on Haley. So Megan was Haley's trial marriage partner. So I feel like Megan switched up. Um, on her, but Haley decided to take the high road, which wasn't fair, but it tends to happen in our queer relationships when people, are done wrong. We have to take the high road and move forward with dignity and grace, and that is how, we bow out for ourselves. And I'm glad that Haley cut contact with Megan after Megan didn't admit that she fell in love with her. So it was also nice to see a femme for femme relationship that lasted a decade. Because I feel like in our community sometimes, especially in, I feel like the black community, like people tend to put a lot of emphasis on like labels, and so there's sort of like a I don't know, maybe a favoritism a little bit for things that are more masculine, I feel like, in our society. So it's nice that that the femme for femme relationship, was showed in a more positive light. Megan and Dana. So my one word for this was messy. They both messed around and then got scared of losing their original partner, so they switched up on the people that they messed around with. So they didn't end up single. So I feel like this was another case of being dependent on the relationships in general, and not seeming to have a lot of self-love. I did like the representation of not having an accepting family, because that does tend to happen, that families are judgmental and you can't help who you fall in love with, so you have to choose your happiness over the judgment and homophobia of family or those who are conservative or not as progressive. All right, Ashley and Marita. I think that was their names. So Ashley seemed nice, and she, in my opinion, she just needs to find someone that appreciates her efforts and actually wants her, and doesn't treat her like a friend. I feel like she was more emotionally available, and I feel like Marita kind of doesn't understand that all because you're more emotionally available and maybe not physically available, maybe I just feel like maybe they just didn't align as far as like being in a relationship, because I remember Ashley said that she already gave her everything, and Marita said that it wasn't enough, so they both needed to go their separate ways, obviously. um, But I feel like Marita seemed to want AJ. So I feel like it wasn't right to put her and Brittany together because they obviously didn't have a romantic connection. So they were both robbed of the process of the show, I feel like. Because they only saw each other as friends. But Marita seemed to try to keep the peace, after they squashed everything with, Marita liking AJ and wanting that to be her trial marriage partner. Um, but yeah, at least they gained new queer friendships. Um, and Kyle and Bridget. So I feel like it was nice to see Kyle care about long-term commitment and to show more introverted people like having love on screen. Bridget seemed like a little hesitant of marriage. She seemed like she did come around and let her walls down around Kyle. So I am glad to see that they worked out. We'll see what happens with all the couples, but that was pretty much my gist of everything. So yeah, I liked the show. It felt a little more like realistic, like to what could really happen. Not all of it was perfect, and but there was some representation there, and I feel like more of those shows need to be on TV. To just show us in, not. I mean, it's not all positive light, but just have some sort of representation out there. So yeah, all right, cool. And I feel like they need to bring a show like that over here to the DMV area. I mean, and show some normal people out here trying to find love. So, all right, well, that's all I got. Thanks. Much love, one love.